Oh hey, welcome to another video. This week I'm going to be showing you the process for my latest painting of this cute little fall inspired Bulbasaur. Yeah, I've been wanting to do Pokemon fan art for a really long time, and it's been one of those things that's like so precious to me that I've kind of put off doing it for so long. But I decided it's time. I did a little poll on Instagram just to ask you guys which starter of the original should I draw first, and everybody unanimously, well, not unanimously, it was like 40% of people wanted Bulbasaur, but to me it was unanimous because I really wanted Bulbasaur, so I was very pleased that everybody was kind of on the same page as me. Yeah, in this painting, I kind of skipped over a little bit, but you can see here right now I've got the a digital version of what I'm painting, and that is basically what I'll do for most of my fuller paintings. Is I'll start with a really rough thumbnail in my sketchbook, and then basically I'll take that into my digital program, which is Paint Tool Sai, and I'll refine that drawing, slap on some rough colors, and then I will trace that drawing onto the paper that I'm going to paint. Yeah, that's what I did with this one. So the colors that I'm mixing and choosing here are all kind of a reflection of the ones that I chose digitally. But honestly, the reason that I don't really do digital illustration so much anymore is because I find that every time that I paint, the colors just feel more natural, more cohesive when I do them with paint. And part of that is because I do like a rough underpainting, which you would have seen with like that burnt sienna orange color that's coming through, that really thin wash. Yeah, that's basically what I use for my underpainting, and I just kind of have that there. It kind of pops through like any area that's a little bit thin, because I do generally work really thin when I paint. So sometimes it will pop through, and it just makes it look a little bit more vibrant. Yeah, it kind of like vibrates off whatever colors over top, particularly if it's like a complementary color. For this, because it is kind of like a bluish green, the orangey tone of the sienna, it works really well. I also like to go over the sketch. I start with pencil, like I trace it with pencil, and then I kind of go over all of those lines once again with that same sienna color. So basically, what that does is it creates more of those little pops of color all along the edges. And when I go over that with the lines with the sienna too, I can like kind of go over top and then erase all of the pencil marks that are there, because I really have a pet peeve with pencil marks. I find graphite really kind of dulls the colors. Yeah, that's basically what I do. And slowly I add layer by layer. Right now you can see I'm trying to establish the values. That's kind of my main goal with this first pass. Um, Goal number one for me, the whole reason beyond the vibration of the colors that I work so gradually, is my goal is to get rid of the white of the page, because that is terribly daunting. I think most people are kind of intimidated by that. Yeah, destroy the white of the paper, goal number one. And so that it gives me a lot of freedom too, I find, when I do that, because it just kind of encourages me to work slowly, layer by layer, without needing to feel like each pass is going to be perfect. So I can go in really thin and blotchy and streaky with that first couple layers and not worry about it not being even and perfect and whatever. With this one, however, I didn't have to do so many passes. I only really had to do maybe one and a half layers of paint. And then once I have those base colors down, like a little bit of the value structure kind of determined, then I go over with colored pencil, which you'll see here in a couple minutes or something. Yeah, I have obviously done full acrylic paintings before. That's genuinely what I did before I started incorporating the colored pencil, but I just find it's harder to control, and I hate that every time I want to tweak something, I need to essentially mix the color again because it dries so quickly. And I know I could just kind of mix a larger batch of paint to kind of prevent it from drying, and there's wet palettes and all of that stuff, but anytime that I'm mixing paint, for some reason, I I hate wasting paint so much that I will literally mix the tiniest portion of paint that I can, so not to waste it. I constantly need to be remixing the color over and over and over again. So it's just kind of annoying part of the way that I work, but I have adapted, as you do, and Yeah, incorporating the colored pencil has been such like a lifesaver for me personally. Like it's allowed me to really kind of jump around the piece as I see fit, which is what I really like to do. I kind of see things here and there, and I like to be able to kind of work a little bit sporadically. So, um, yeah, so as you can see, he's got an acorn on his back. I thought that'd be really cute for fall. I was looking at ideas. I was just gonna paint like a normal Bulbasaur initially, but honestly, because it's such a popular IP, like obviously Pokemon is huge. Bulbasaur has been painted in pretty much every single angle and pose and setting that you can imagine. So I thought the next best thing would be to kind of do what I normally would do and to like tweak it a little bit. So make him a little bit special to me, a little bit unique to what I do. And because of the season, I figured, well, maybe I should incorporate something fall. And I did initially want to do like a jack o' lantern for Halloween because I thought that's such a cute idea. But I looked it up, and it's very, very popular, of course, because it is such a great idea. So there's already so many of those. I was like, okay, what else is kind of round and bulbous? And so yeah, we have a little acorn. And you may be thinking, well, Bulbasaur only has the bulb, it doesn't have any leaves like Ivysaur. But I honestly battled with that so much. But my reasoning is that the oak leaves attached to the acorn, they're not a product of the growth of the acorn. Like with Ivysaur, the evolution is all the plant kind of growing off of his back. But with the acorn, the leaves are just kind of attached to the acorn, and then maybe the next evolution of this would be the acorns kind of starting to sprout a little bit. But um, yeah, so it's still a Bulbasaur. It's not an Ivysaur. And I do actually have two other pieces in mind. Obviously, I need to paint Squirtle and Charmander because duh, I can't just do Bulbasaur. So I already have some like fall inspired ideas for those guys. So yeah, if you're interested in that, like and subscribe and all that jazz. And hopefully I'll do like a full video of each of those. So and yeah, maybe even the next 2 weeks have both of those done. That would be ideal. So yeah, where am I even at now? Okay, yeah. So I added blue onto the leaves and the acorn, and I kind of like to do that because I like to think of the skylight kind of reflecting down onto the figure. So yeah, I'll usually just throw some blue on there, but obviously sometimes it doesn't work, and it didn't work on this one because the leaves are kind of like a yellow orangey. So that blue kind of just turned into a really dull gray, and it took away the vibrancy that was there initially. So yeah, pretty much after I did that, I immediately kind of regretted it. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have added that. And you'll see me later on. I kind of fight with it to hide it and take it away. But yeah, it's okay. In the meantime, it's fine. I do like it on the acorn because obviously acorns are a little bit more reflective. So yeah, that's there. And yeah, so at this point, I've already gone in with the colored pencil. I'm slowly chipping away. And my main goal when I go in with colored pencil is to smooth out a lot of the imperfections in the paint because because I do work so thin, it does tend to be a little bit blotchy. And obviously the risk of this is that I will sometimes lose that vibrancy from the underpainting below if I get too thick with a colored pencil. But when I go in with the orangey yellow, I'm kind of like trying to reincorporate that underpainting into the overpainting, if that makes any sense. So I'll just kind of throw that around sporadically just to give little pops of vibrancy. So yeah, my a big goal of mine, I guess, is to incorporate lots of hue shifts. So rather than just having one flat color of like, for instance, if it's blue, rather than like adding a lighter blue and a darker blue to the lighting and the shadows respectively, I like to make the highlights a little bit warmer and maybe the shadows a little bit cooler, so I'll shift it one color to another. um, and the lighting can be obviously warm, and or the lighting can be cool and the shadows can be warm. Like that's not like, I know a lot of people initially will start out with thinking all of the shadows should be like a little bit of a purple or a little bit of a cool tone, but yeah, just be aware that like it can go either way. Lighting is really, really fun to kind of mess around with. There's so much you can do and still have it kind of look believable. And honestly, I think that for me, where I started in digital art, there was obviously so much flexibility in a digital program with like overlay layers and multiply and shifting all of the colors however I want. It allowed me to kind of view lighting in a really, really creative way. So now that I have picked up painting, I kind of approach with that same creativity when it comes to lighting. So I do find it relatively easy to kind of make up my own lighting schemes and play with the bounce light and stuff like that. So um, yeah, so I do that a lot in the eyes because the eyes are so reflective because they're wet. So I like to add again that blue to the upper facing side of the eyes. And I find that that really brings us so much life and it really makes the eyes look like they're glowing. And particularly when you that little spot highlight that you'll see the white, which is my favorite part of painting by the way. Like that just one little I love it. Yeah, if you just kind of go around it with a really saturated color. For this one I chose blue, but you can kind of play around with that. Yeah, it just looks like it's glowing. I love that. So yeah, I'm just basically smoothing everything out, working my way around the piece. So yeah, I tried to incorporate another camera angle in this one. So hopefully you guys like that. Basically, what I did is I found my old iPhone, and by old I mean it's literally like 10 years old. I don't even know what generation it is, but it still works, much to my surprise. And I can just record on it and then like hook it up to my computer. So, um, yeah, I think I should get like a little tripod to like actually make steady shots of like the close up angles. But yeah, it's just all my hand. Every time you see me shift angles, it's just me trying to like paint with one hand and hold the camera with the other. So I need to come up with a better strategy for that. But yeah, I think it helps. It's hard to really capture what I'm doing when I'm just shooting from overhead and like speeding it up. So yeah, like this whole process for the most part, minus all of the angles where I'm from the side there, they're all sped up to I believe 4 times. So yeah, this whole painting took me. Um, I didn't time it, but I finished it over a course of 2 days. So obviously, I didn't want you guys to sit through that entire process. So even this, there's still quite a bit of it that's just kind of chopped out. Everything that I felt was a little bit repetitive or wasn't actually showing you much. I just kind of chopped it out so it saved on time. Yeah. So yeah, right now I'm doing that thing that I told you about where I'm incorporating some of that orange back into the overpainting. So you'll see me do that particularly along the lines. So I don't really do line art in my paintings. I find it kind of kills the three-dimensionality of it, despite, working really, really line heavy every other time. But yeah, I do have a semblance of the lines kind of popping through because I start with that sienna outline from the sketch. So um, everywhere that I'll see that kind of popping through, but if it looks a little bit messy, I'll go in with a really saturated color and kind of exaggerate it in certain spots. So not over the whole thing, but just in certain spots, I like it to pop through. I think it just adds a little bit of character. Yeah, I don't know. I just one of those things I really enjoy. And speaking of things I really enjoy, I mentioned the highlights of the eye being my favorite thing, but I think the second favorite thing of mine is just highlighting everything else. I think for most artists, there is so much fun that comes with highlights, and I think it's probably because it adds such like three-dimensionality to it really, really easily. So yeah, when I go in with the white colored pencil, I just, throw that along the plane that is kind of facing the eyes and makes it look almost like kind of plasticky. And I like that personally. I kind of like my paintings to look like toys, so that's what I want. Maybe not necessarily what you're after, but um, yeah, trying to darken up some of the values. You'll see me. Yeah, I don't like that one I just did. It was a little bit too dark. So I actually can go back in and erase that. So a lot of people don't, I don't know if, like, I'm surely not the first person to do this, but I realized that if I put too many layers of colored pencil on top of the paint and like it gets so waxy to the point of where I can't add any more, then I can actually go in with an eraser and remove all of that colored pencil that's there and then kind of start over. So it's not foolproof. Like sometimes it does create a little bit of a smudge or it doesn't lift up completely. Or it like it flattens the paper to the degree where it won't necessarily pick up the colored pencil even if it's all removed. So that's just, kind of something I've had to work around, but has been really encouraging to know that like if I layer too many colored pencils on, then I do have the option to try and pick some of that up and then kind of start fresh again. So I love that. Like erasing, like Control Z is really the pinnacle of working digitally that I miss since I've gone traditional. And for me, erasing colored pencil is the closest I am going to get to the Control Z in person. So I love that for me. um, yeah, so I give a lot of attention to the eyes, of course, because they are the windows to the soul. And this little Bulbasaur has a lot of soul, I like to think. He looks super excited for fall. Oh, you'll see in the cast shadows, like for that leaf that's on his forehead, there is a dark shadow underneath, and I like to throw a little bit of the bounce lighting into that cast shadow. So you'll see at the very tip of it, it's got like a little bit of an orangey yellowish glow. And that's just the way that light works. It's kind of bouncing around everywhere, and like color doesn't exist in a vacuum. So if there's a color next to another color, they're kind of gonna bounce off of each other, unless it's certain materials or certain colors will affect that. Like black doesn't reflect nearly as much as something like white would, of course. So um, yeah, I love that. That's one of my favorite elements of the lighting. Is just so much fun bounce light, and rim lighting too is another one that I really really like. So like adding highlights along the edges. It's not always realistic. It's just more of like a stylistic thing that you'll see in a lot of digital artists. I find do this really frequently. So that's another element that I've taken from that and incorporated into my traditional work. So so yeah, eventually I what I have a hard time with foliage, to be honest. Like I love leaves, I love nature, big nature person, but painting leaves is kind of a struggle for me. So I did procrastinate starting these, and they turned out fine. Like I don't hate the process once I'm doing it, but for some reason there's such a reluctance to start. So yeah, eventually I did get to these. I think I was extra reluctant, honestly, because of the gray that I knew was there, and it felt really dull. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to fix that. I know it. So I was kind of dreading that a little bit. But I do eventually go back in with some paint, and I do take away most of that. So that's fine. Yeah, another thing that I like about my process that I've kind of discovered is that I can layer, not infinitely, but I can layer like acrylic and then colored pencil and then acrylic again. And that's pretty much the extent. Like I can add another layer of colored pencil, but I have to be very, very gentle because at that point, especially if the colored pencil underneath the acrylic is too waxy, then if I try to make any marks on the acrylic layer on top, it will just kind of rip off and show the colored pencil underneath. So I do have to kind of tread carefully when I do that, but just another like a freedom of like if I mess up, then I can cover it up very easily. And having that kind of no pressure mentality when I'm creating is so important for me, because that's actually what kept me from painting for so long, as I was just terrified the transition from going from digital where everything is so easily control Z'd or altered and manipulated. It's kind of tricky to make that mental transition to painting where it's a lot more permanent and a lot harder to kind of recover from any mistakes. So there was obviously a lot of reluctance to be experimental and to try new things. And yeah, my whole kind of journey with painting has just been trying to find ways to make it easier for myself. So again, like getting rid of the white as soon as possible and just finding ways to manipulate my mediums so that I'm not afraid to make a mistake and I feel like I can recover from it easily enough. So yeah, so at this point I'm pretty much done. I'm like finishing up, just kind of darkening the edges along some of the leaves and making them look a little bit more fall-like. And I think I've gone over with the paint for the most part. Maybe I haven't. I've lost track of where I'm at now because I'm kind of, as I'm talking, I'm trying to look away from the video because I'm getting distracted by it at the same time. So I'm learning, guys. This is this is authentic. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm pretty much done here. So yeah, I actually had a lot of fun painting this. It's always a struggle to paint on camera. That's just something I'm gonna have to adjust to, and I imagine everybody kind of goes through that process. But I really do love YouTube, so I look forward to making more videos and kind of improving and getting better, and then eventually getting like a more legit setup because my setup right now is very, it's rough, guys. I'm glad you can't actually see things behind the scenes, but maybe when I'm less embarrassed, I'll show you. Oh yeah, so at this point, okay, now I'm going in with the paint. So I think it's like a Naples yellow or something like that, and I'm just kind of going over those dingy gray areas that were a result of my blue. So yeah, cleaning it up, making it more solid. And there's something so satisfying about having all of these kind of muddied colors all waxied from the colored pencil. Like I hate when it gets to that point when I've layered it too much. I can just pop on a smooth opaque layer of paint and then immediately it's like it brings it back to life basically. So I really, really enjoy that. And yeah, anyway, that's going to be it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm going to try and do this weekly, like I said. So yeah, let me know if I should do Charmander or Squirtle next in the comments. Bye!